The seller did not disclose material defects in the property and it's discovered, and will they be liable even up to the day of closing? The answer would be a qualified yes, okay? So first of all, most contracts to buy a home these days are as-is contracts. And what as-is means is that prior to closing, the seller is not obligated to pay for any repairs or termite treatment. But even with an as-is contract, the seller is still obligated to disclose to the buyer any known material defects. So this is apparently a buyer, and now they're in a contract with the seller, and now all of a sudden they discover this material defect. And the question really is, what should the buyer do? And first, let me tell you is, do not close with knowing that this material defect is what it is, without getting it resolved. If you know there's a material defect as a buyer and you go ahead and still do the closing, and the day after the closing, you've waived your right to pursue the seller. So at this moment in time, what you need to do is to get the seller to either fix that problem or have the seller reduce the purchase price. That's usually the way it's resolved. The seller reduces the purchase price prior to closing. So what do you think about that, Chrissy?
Well, I think that, again, it really goes to one of the other text questions here as well, it is important to have an attorney be a part of your transaction.
Well, yeah, there's a next text question.
You know?
She says, keep hammering on the need for a seller of a home to hire their own attorney to represent them. So we could take that a step further and say both the buyer and seller, we would recommend that you hire a lawyer to review your closing documents prior to closing. Mm-hmm. Now, the vast majority of closings that happen here in the state of Florida, they happen at a title company. There's no lawyer involved. Mm-hmm. But often a buyer of property or a seller of property will call me and ask them to review closing documents on their behalf, and we do that on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm. And that's also another advantage to Edgewater Title Company that you have, is because they are very appreciative that when Candy does a closing and that you, as part of it, as a real estate lawyer, will review the documents for
Well,
people
what we're
too.
saying is that I co-own a title insurance company, a title company, Edgewater Title Company, with Candy. Candy's been with me for over 30 years, and they're right down the hall. Well, the nice thing about that is they need a lawyer, they need legal advice. They can walk on right on down and talk to me about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's quite often that there's something that requires your attention.
Yeah. So when I review closing documents on behalf of a buyer, often I find mistakes that have been made that will, whatever the buyer is paying me to review the closing documents, they will have saved a bunch of money down the road. Because sometimes when you're a buyer of property and you do it and everything seems good, you don't realize that there is a problem or a mistake was made at the moment of closing. You might have bought it 10 years ago, and well, now you got to go figure out how to fix it 10 years later, and that can be very difficult. So if you'd like me to represent you as a buyer or seller in real estate, or you need any kind of legal advice, we very much appreciate you thinking of us, giving us a call next week. We will be there ready to represent you at 407-423-5561, or email me through our website, lawtube.com, like YouTube, but lawtube.com. Everybody, thanks so much for your great calls and questions. We do so much appreciate it. If I may, a suggestion for you, go outdoors and take pleasure in the beauty of nature, and as always, enjoy your friends and family. My name is Tom Olson. The name of the show is Olson on Law. You're listening to News 96.5.